Monday. I am playing a little music. It's called At the Well. And it was written for Sisters at the Well 15 years ago when we started Sisters at the Well. And that is Miss Brannis McKenzie out of Oakland, California, who created this song. So I just put it on so we can get a little music as we're starting and waiting for folks to come in. Hi, Charlene. Happy Monday to you. I hope you had a great weekend. Linda, how are you? That's our Sisters at the Well song. Is everybody okay? Good. So, I am in Atlanta. This is Real Talk with Love. I'm Coach Barbara. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was listening to Sisters at the Well by Brannis McKenzie, an amazing songstress up in the Oakland, California area. And she wrote that song for us when we started Sisters at the Well 15 years ago. And so I wanted to give you a little taste of that. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful. That's Brannis. So, hi Cody. My son is on today. It's lovely. Nice to have him watching, listening in on his mom. We have a really good session planned today. Last Monday, as you can remember, we talked about building a legacy. And legacy building and the importance of telling your own story. We talked a lot about why we should even consider building our legacy. Because if we don't tell our own story, when we're no longer here, what do you think they will say about you? What is it that you've come here to do that you know about and you want to make sure the next generation knows about? You know, you want to make sure that people understand who you are, who you were. Because, you know, your story is what you're going to start writing today, but someone's going to finish it because you may not be here to read it. Hi, Joanne. Hey, Dawn from Kumasi, Ghana. My sister. Good to have you. So last week we had this really wonderful conversation about building your legacy and the importance of that. Hi, Christine. Oh, my friend from American Airlines. We were flight attendants together. I miss you and Silmar. We're going to continue the conversation about legacy building because my phone blew up after we got off live. Folks asking me questions like, how do you even begin, right? And we just had some really good conversations by email and by phone, some of them. And one person asked me, can we just do a part 2? So today, our topic on Real Talk with Love, our topic is from memory to manuscript. Now, certainly when you're building your legacy and you're creating your legacy, you could decide that the legacy will be in the form of a book. But you may decide something else. You may decide that it's a biographical type of book where you actually tell your life story. You may decide, as I said last week, you may decide to tell it by the significant events in your life. You may want to take them. I looked at my life in decades. Ooh, that sounds interesting. That I have 6 decades I can look at. But I took all the 10 years and said, what happened in this period? What happened in that period? Of course, some things was just, I was born and I was trying to grow up. But then there were some significant moments, some marked moments that I thought might be interesting from each one of those 6 decades. So I started organizing my thoughts around that. You may want to consider doing it that way as well. Or you may want to consider looking through photographs from, your mom, your grandmother, or others in your family may have older photographs that you might want to organize and try to build a story around it. Coralie from the Bahamas, hey, and my sister Deb is on. But building your legacy is a personal journey. You decide how you want to do that. What we're going to focus on today, though, let's focus on writing a book, writing your story, and putting it in a book so that your words, your own words, will actually be the significant part of your legacy. That it would not be the words of other people. I have a few examples that I want to show. Now, I'm the author of 7 books. The most recent one is a book on restoration, and it talks about a big, significant event in my life. It was when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and going through that and the lessons learned and how something that appeared to be so horrible and horrific, which in many ways it was, ended up being a year of just great opportunity for personal development and growth and spiritual development that I didn't anticipate. So I wrote this book. The title of the book is Restoration. There it is. 7 Promises of God. And one of my spiritual mothers, Iyanla Van Zandt, wrote the foreword to this book. And the cover of this book, which is here as well as behind me, was designed by internationally known artist, Dr. Cynthia St. James. And Cynthia has covered probably more than this, but I'm going to give this number because I'll be safe with it. Over 50 books. She's covered 3 of mine for sure. Acts of Faith. What's Terry McMillan? One of Terry McMillan's books, and many, many, many more. Cynthia was the designer on Restoration. This artwork, this is the original art behind me because it now belongs to me. And she was the designer. She actually helped me to think through what the cover of the book was going to talk about. When you start thinking about your legacy and what you're going to write, you're thinking about what's going to live on. And so you want to put into that enough thought, and we'll get into it. We're going to put enough thought and planning into it. And you want to think from the very beginning on how will my story be told on and on for generations to come. Certainly if you put it in a book, the likelihood of it being passed on through the generations would be that much greater. So I want to show you a couple of books, and then I'm going to get right into, and these are different types of books, right? So one, I said I grouped my years in 10-year periods. For 20 years, I've been very intentional about being a mentor. And the reason why is because I've had great mentors in my life. One of the most extraordinary relationships I've had was with a woman named Dorothy Irene Height. And I wrote this book. Can you see it? It's called The Legacy Project. The Legacy Project is not a book that's written scripted. It's pictures. So it started with Dr. Height on the cover, and then there's me, and it talks about why I decided to put this picture book together. And then it goes from that to, can you see it? It goes from that to a photograph with me and Dorothy Height, and then it talks about our relationship as a mentor. Now here's the catch. Then I did, look at that. Can you see it? I hope it's not blurry. Willa said hers was a little blurry. But this is April Russell, for example. In every page of this book, it is a woman that I've mentored and her story about our relationship as mentor-mentee. So this is the first legacy project that I put together, and it's a picture book. What I asked of those women, each woman that I mentored, and in this book I have a second one coming out because I've been mentoring for 20 years and I stay in relationship with the women that I mentor. So this book has 17 women in it that I have mentored, and what I've asked of each of them is that they would do the same thing, that they will play it forward by mentoring other women. I don't care if it's one or if it's 17. And I've asked them to document what mentoring means to them. So this book is a part of my legacy, and it's a picture book. It's not biographical. So this represents a 10-year period in my life. Remember, you can take photographs and then organize them in a way that represent significant moments in your life. Here's another example. I started something in 2003 called the We See You Awards. This was the 8th year. But we did the We See You Awards in Los Angeles at the Skirball Cultural Center for 11 years. And every year, the We See You Awards honored women who were doing things in their community, in the state, some of them not noticed at all, not doing it to be noticed, but simply going about doing their assignment, what I call their life's work. So this We See You Awards, every year what I would do is I would take the honorees and I would put them in a picture book. These were the honorees in the 8th year. This is the back cover of the book. And some of you may recognize these women. All of them are in Los Angeles. Angela Reddock, Jackie Lacey, Barbara Sullivan, Kim Freeman. Oh, I'm missing oh Lord, I'm missing one of the names. It's coming back to me. But these are the women who were honored that year, right? And in the book, again, it's mostly pictures. It's a picture book, right? There's a page dedicated to each one of the women that was honored in that year. And so that's an example of how you can put a book together. Here's another We See You Awards. And every year was different. Every year different. Look on the back of this one. On the back, I would always put the women that we honored for that year. So the quality of the book, thank you, Andrea, for your comment about the books being beautiful. They are beautiful. Thank you. What I did was I spent a bunch of time, a lot of time thinking about, this is the story that I want to last for a long time. So it was done with quality in mind, with purpose in mind, and it was done in a way that it will continue to honor the work. Again, we're talking about building your legacy. We're talking about what is it that you are doing in your life that you would like to pass on to the next generation, that you want to tell your story. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I can't get into exactly how you do it, right? Because that's going to take a lot more time than the time we have designated for this session. But what I do want to do is I want to talk to you about what are some of the critical pieces needed when you're telling your story. So we're going to say that your story is going to be in a picture book or a biographical book. And you want to produce something of quality, of course, right? So the first order of business is to be mindful about what it is you want to do and why. I want to create a book that tells my life story. Who am I creating this for and why? So those things, you want to get that settled right off the bat, and you want to write just like any other project. You want to take it serious enough to be able to write it down so that you're beginning to draft out what your plan is going to be. Now, there are some things that you absolutely cannot shortcut if you want it to last. Quality, absolutely. Professionalism. I'm not saying you cannot do it on your computer, you can. But again, I'm talking about longevity. I'm talking about legacy building. And when I think of legacy, I think of 7 generations deep. I'd like to see these books last. And in fact, I've gifted a copy of each one of these books to the women that I mentor, the mentoring book I did. So here are the things that you critically need. Discipline. That's number 1. Because it's so much fun to start to write your legacy. But like any other big project, if you are not self-disciplined about it, you will most likely quit. Because you're going to run into some times when it's going to feel a little challenging, right? Just organizing it, pulling it together, keeping everything together. The discipline is critical. When you think of writing your own story, it does sound easy. It's your story. You know it better than anybody else. You can sit down and you write. Well, not so easy. If your muscle for writing, if your muscle is not strengthened, you won't write every day. You won't write as frequently as you need to write. You have to build up the muscle for writing. One of the ways, and I can't go into a lot, but I'll give you quick tips. One of the ways you build your muscle for writing is through journaling. I write probably every day. And the writing that I do sometimes has nothing to do with a book. It's just the habit of writing something down, the discipline around what you need to do to tell your story. Second thing you need a team. There is no way, if you're actually writing a book that you hope to publish, you need a team. There is absolutely no way to do it by yourself. You cannot be the writer, the editor, the proofreader, the designer, the coach. You can't do all of that and write. So you need a team. It is critically important to have a publisher. But let me just say to you, you don't call the publisher before you start writing because she can't help you. And I say she because my publisher is Willa Robinson, who's on, and she's amazing. But it does not make sense to call a publisher if you haven't written anything. But you will need a publisher because the publisher will lead the implementation and the process for how the book actually gets on a shelf if you choose to do that. You also need on your team, you need editors. And I say editors with an S because not only do you have the need for someone who checks your work so that it's grammatically correct and that there's a technician on board, but you also need a content editor, someone who can check facts for you, because sometimes, we think we remember something and it wasn't quite like that. And I still don't know the answer to this, but I keep saying that the Northridge earthquake was in 1995, and someone just told me 1994. So for those of you who know, put it in the thread. I keep saying it was January 1995. Sometimes you're so sure of something and you might just be off a little bit. You need a content editor who helps you with making sure that what you're putting in this book that's going to be legacy, that it's truthful, right? That it's, you got to have that. Also on your team, you need a designer. Oh, it was 1994. Thank you, Willa. I was wrong. I better start saying it was 1994. So you need your editors. You need a designer. For example, thanks, Charlene. Cynthia St. James was the cover designer for my last book, Restoration. Now, you may not commission. I commissioned the work. I love Cynthia. We have a great relationship, and she's my sister. I'm her little sister. But she designed this book from a conversation we had. I could pour out to her what I was feeling and what I thought the book was going to be. Hi, Joanna. And she, in turn, covered this book with this amazing fire rainbow. If I had more time, I'll tell you that story, but I'm going to do something on this book probably in the next 2 weeks. But that's a fire rainbow. You also need a designer who can lay the book out. So the inside, the interior designer is critical. Now, it could be that the designers are the same. You may have a cover designer like Juan, who's also an amazing part of the team with Willa, and I'm so honored that he's covered, done the artwork, and designed the layout for the covers of my book. More than one, 3 of my books. You may not need to do that level, but I don't see why, because I can't imagine you're wanting the best quality and shortchanging the cover, right? So then you need a proofreader. The proofreader you need early on board. As soon as you say you're going to start writing, find yourself a proofreader. I happen to have 2. Linda Morgan and Delarice. Delarice is in the Bahamas, and she is an amazing proofer. Her little eyes will catch it all. And Linda, I just call her Eagle Eyes because she will catch every incorrect spelled anything. And you need that because there is no way you can complete a manuscript, send it to an editor full of incorrectly spelled words. So, and then from my perspective, there is no way to do it without a coach. It certainly doesn't have to be Barbara Perkins. I'd like for it to be Barbara Perkins if you're thinking about it. But anyone who can be your accountability partner. I see you, Charlene. Thanks for being here. And Tracy. But you need a coach. So I'm a book coach. I'm a coach. I'm a life coach. But there are certain areas in coaching that I sort of spend most of my time with. And supporting folks as they're working on their book is one of the things I really enjoy doing. It helps me as a coach. It helps me to even get better. You want someone to be your accountability partner and to help you lay out your plan. And when you have all of those things together, that makes up your team. Your team is going to be 5 to 7 people. Okay? The next thing in terms of critical needs, we have 3 more, is a budget. It does cost money because I just said, these are the people you need on your team, and you certainly will have to pay them, right? It's worth it. You have to pay them, each of them. Now, you may be able to find a package somewhere here or there with someone who does a lot of different things, but it's going to cost you. So you have to think about the budget and plan for it. And then the 4th thing is you need a plan. You don't want to approach it sort of what they say willy-nilly, right? Just, oh, I'm preparing for my legacy and I'm pulling some papers together and I'm going to write some notes down and I'm going to put them all in a notebook and then I'll put them in the trunk and that's my legacy. Well, I don't think people are going to take that too seriously, and it may not even last, right? It may not last. So you want to make sure that the plan you have, and that's what you're going to work out with your coach. You're going to work out your plan for how you move forward with building your legacy. If this is resonating with you, by the way, I should have said this earlier, but when we're finished, I'm going to ask you to share this with some folks, right? So that we can spread the word about the importance of building our legacy. I'm also going to ask you to put some hearts in there so I can see that this is resonating with you. And then lastly, I'm going to ask you if you have any specific questions for me to put them in there so I can see them and I can hopefully answer a couple of questions for you. So I talked about the team. I'll go back to you, because none of this will happen without your commitment to your legacy. On the picture books, by the way, it doesn't require as much as what I've talked about. It does require a proofreader. It does require having the discipline and a plan. But I used for these beautiful books, the We See You Award books, I used Shutterfly. And the most I had to do was organize everything. I had to be very organized. And for every page in the book, I had a blueprint, how I wanted that page set up. And Shutterfly has an easy sort of online, you can move things around, you can see what the draft is going to be. And the beauty of the picture books, and they're like coffee table books. I have one more I'm going to show you, by the way, because this one is really pretty. So they're all hardbacks, but I did this one. Can you see that? This one is leather bound. So quality. It is so beautiful. And every page has a story about the event that we did. And this is a coffee table book. It sits on my table, and it's one of those pieces. I have a gallery in my home, and it's one of those pieces where when people come in, they pick that up because it's so beautiful. They're all beautiful, but this one I spent a little more money on having that one done. But certainly you can see how that could be a part of your legacy when you spend a little extra time with putting that together like that. So here's my offering to you, which, I, as a coach, it gives me joy to see this work being done. And for the last 7 weeks, on Mondays, I come on and we talk about different things. What has gotten me really excited is the feedback that I'm getting from those of you who now have your advanced life preparation in order, your wills, your power of attorneys, that you're now having family conversations about what happens in the case of death, and that you're having those difficult conversations. That feedback has been really, really good for me, and I've really appreciate hearing back from you that these 30-minute talks are beneficial. We talked about fear. I gave points on how to handle this time of being sheltered in and some of the things you can do, and how it's okay that fear comes, but it's not okay that fear stays, and some of the things you can do to mitigate that, to clear that up. We talked about grief in one of our sessions. And now today and last week we talked about resiliency and how we come through the corona phase. What's going to happen on the other side? Who do we want to be when this is over? We talked about that. We talked about the resiliency of women and how we are set up. We are set up to get through. But if you're finding yourself where you cannot make it through, how to get help? We've encouraged that. And now we're talking about using some of this time to think about your legacy, your assignment, your creativity, allowing it to come through. I have an offering for you. My offering as a coach is 2 sessions for $175. I'll put it up in the thread. If you're interested in 2 sessions only for $175 and you want to work with me specifically on building your legacy, I will be very happy to work with you on that. And that's an offering. It's not my normal, but it's an offering to this community for this time period. So I'll be more than happy to do that. And I thank Tina McKenna for calling me last week to say, you should be offering this. So I'm doing it. I'm making that space for the rest of this month and June to be able to offer that package. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for joining. So what else can I share with you? That's really our time together. If this has been good for you, if you have questions, what I've decided to do next week, I'm going to change the format just a little bit. When we open next Monday, I'm going to open with answering at least 1, maybe 2 questions that you've put in the thread. So I'll open up with I'll try to answer 2 questions. But you put the questions in the thread this week, and then on Monday, I will answer those questions and then start. Okay? How does that work for you guys? It's good? Hearts if it's good. And then lastly, I always give something, right? So today I decided, since we were talking about legacy building and you're having an accountability partner, I am going to gift one person a session, a complimentary session, and I am going to do that. I have a little team, Linda and Erica. They're going to look back through the thread, and the person who was the most engaged on the thread, we're going to offer you, and we'll reach out to you. They'll tell me who it is. We'll reach out to you and we'll offer you a session, okay? A coaching session on legacy building. And that will be my gift to you today. Thank you for listening. Please, please, please start a watch party on your timeline now so that some of your friends who might have missed this can see it, and share it with someone who you love and care about. Thank you all for joining. Kathy, I see you coming on. Thank you so much. Erica, I saw you. A whole bunch of you I might have missed today, but just know that I go back through the thread and I look at it and I give you a shout out and a wave. So thank you once again. Please put your questions in the thread. I will be sure to look through them and try and answer next week. God bless you and have a good evening. Bye-bye.